Thanks, Angie.
Danke, my hard-hearted friend.
Let's go, Doc.
I am the Uberman.
What? Pow! Pow! Bang! Bam!
Many people believe that the 9 mercs of Team Fortress 2 are specialists, a person who concentrates primarily on a particular subject or activity, or a person who is highly skilled in a specific and restricted field. But strangely enough, when people are asked what class they should be playing as a first-time Team Fortress 2 player, they're often directed towards Pyro, Medic, or Soldier. Soldier and Pyro often being called the generalists among the 9 mercs, and they are relatively easy to play. The definition of a generalist is a person who is competent in several different fields or activities. So in other words, a jack of all trades. And if we're going by this definition, we must look at the class divisions in Team Fortress 2. Offense, defense, and support. Of our 9 playable characters, 3 people fit into each section, with Scout, Soldier, and Pyro in offense, then the Demo Man, the Heavy, and the Engineer in defense, and last but not least, we have Medic, Sniper, and Spy in support. So naturally, when you hear the suggestion that these fellows are generalists, you're under the impression that these guys can do everything. And in a way they can, but not in the way that falls under the actual definition of a generalist. Team Fortress is obviously a team game, but these classes don't really do much for their teams except in rare occasions. When people say that Soldier, Pyro, Demoman, or Scout are generalists and easier to play classes, they say this because these guys are easy to play for yourself as. While yes, a Pyro could air blast his burning teammates, or a Soldier could use the conch to give his team a better chance to push, they're often playing for themselves and only ever truly interacting with their team to beg a medic for healing. When people say these classes are generalists, they really mean that there's never a wrong time to pick them, just because their defending and attacking is about the same. There's not much of a thought process change. But they aren't truly generalists. Sure, they have some sort of mobility and high damage output or higher DPS, but they can't assist in ways like healing or getting their team to the front line or flank instantly. They can't consistently defend an area with perfect aim. Oh yeah, the Engineer can just do that.
Need a teleporter here!
The teleporter is the Engineer's closest thing to quote-unquote mobility.
Well, Rocky Rad, what about the Wrangler?
Shush! Let me make my points. Stupid Wranglers. Get out of here. Go! Anyways, as I was saying, Team Fortress has always been a movement game ever since the beginning and when it was a Quake mod. So when you look at the Engineer, you don't think about movement whatsoever, which is fair because he's average speed and even slower when hauling buildings. But the Engineer isn't meant to go fast or fly across the map. He's meant to help the whole team get from point A to point B in an orderly and nearly instant fashion, or in some cases from point C to point B. So it's pretty obvious what the teleporter does, but the catch of being a quote-unquote jack of all trades is the fact that there's always a chance of there being something better than you. Right? So, if we're going by this philosophy, what is it that the other 8 mercenaries have that can get their team to the front line or even the enemy's flank? I mean, the Scout has speed and maybe Bonk could get to the back lines, but that's one little guy who can only do so much damage.
Listening? Okay. Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and brother, I don't hurt people.
So, this is probably the one thing that Engineer is truly unmatched in. The teleporter is quite literally his most important building. It allows constant combat for your team, and listen closely now, will win your games. The Engineer's job should never be a maintain a sentry, where he focuses on a building that does the same thing most of his team does, but instead maintain a supportive building, which is something only 2 of his team members can do, him and the medic. Especially a teleporter. No one else can do the same thing as a teleporter can, and that's extremely important and unique. It's key to winning most of your games.
Put this dispenser here! Nope.
Okay, the dispenser. This is Team Fortress 2's secondary and lower source of consistent and constant nearby healing, right below the medigun. Don't get it wrong, just because it's a secondary doesn't mean that it can't excel, or just be very helpful in general. The medigun and the dispenser are the only things that can very obviously heal teammates. Yes, there are things like Heavy's lunchbox items, or the conch, or Scout's mad milk, but those things are on cooldown, or have many other factors that make them inconsistent and inconstant. Anyways, no one wants to play medic. Yeah, it's a big shocker, I know. But his gameplay does get stale pretty easily. Everyone expects him to be perfect. He's constantly singled out, and there's really only one primary and melee that are viable for use. Also, in general, when you're playing an FPS, you expect to be shooting and dealing damage, and it's probably one of the reasons medic is played so little. It's much more fun to be the guy dealing damage rather than hiding behind the fella dealing damage, which it's very understandable. That's fair. And thankfully, the dispenser is the almost perfect stand-in with some pros and cons. While still very viable, it has 4 downsides when compared to the ultimate healing weapon of Team Fortress 2, and all of them can completely ruin this contraption if you don't use your thinking properly. Number 1, healing speed. The dispenser has 3 different healing speeds, respective to the 3 levels of this contraption: 10 health per second, 15 health per second, and 20 health per second, which can be seen as a pretty big downgrade when the medigun can do 25 health per second in combat and 72 health per second out of combat. So don't expect to be able to tank a bunch of damage when standing next to any level of these things. Instead, think of it as something that you can retreat to, or a safe zone, when you take too much damage after killing a couple players. Also, it's a nice way to negate afterburn or any bleed damage. Number 2, it's stationary. I mean, this is pretty obviously self-explanatory. So this means either your dispenser is placed around your team, or your team tries to play around your dispenser. This is obviously the building that should be the farthest up, so your team is able to use it to its full advantage. They can still deal damage, and your dispenser can heal and dispense ammo to them. Number 3, there's no overheal. That's I don't know what else to say. I'm not gonna write a paragraph here, because that is that's obvious. I mean, you can't overheal teammates. It's one of the biggest things why medic is better than the dispenser. Last but not least, number 4, and most importantly actually, there's no Uber. The entire reason the medigun will always be better than the dispenser is the Uber push. The Uber push is the thing that trumps everything every time, except for when a certain unbalanced weapon comes into play, which shall not be named, just to respect everyone who's been done dirty by it. The Uber is the thing. The Uber is the thing that allows people to break holds and the Uber is the thing that allows people to break stalemates and progress the game. But there is one thing that the medigun doesn't do that the dispenser can. It can dispense ammo, yeah! Yeah, I know it's not exactly astonishing that it can give out ammo, but it is very helpful to classes like Demoman and Soldier, or even Heavy, which are, Heavy's not really a reloading class, but Soldier and Demoman are just kind of like reloading simulator, so that's very helpful. Also, a level 1 dispenser allows a Heavy to shoot his minigun infinitely, which is extremely dope, and it's pretty awesome, yeah.
Deploy a sentry here, maggot!
So we've talked about movement and healing. All that's left now is defense and offense. And the 2 sentries that the engineer has at his disposal contribute to both. One slightly more able to be used in general, but I won't be talking about it until later. So this one is going to be in the spotlight for this section of the video. The stock sentry is the entire reason the engineer is traditionally labeled under the defense role, despite being so much more than that. The sentry is the ultimate form of area denial. If placed in the right spot, then you quite literally have a dome of death. It has perfect aim and becomes a zone that enemy players will actively avoid, tread carefully, and plan around, because stepping into it often means being shredded into little bits. While it can be exploited by the enemy team and will probably be destroyed in their inevitable push at some point, which is part of the engineer's gameplay loop, that's fine. The sentry never lasts forever. A good engineer should never be playing directly next to his sentry whenever it's under heavy fire, as this will result in your death nearly every time. If you don't understand why, think about the logic people use when a medic is pocketing someone. It's a smarter move to get rid of the fellow who's keeping the threat alive rather than dealing with the threat itself. As a side note, if you ever do feel like you need to tank your sentry, the engineer has quite a few options. There is a whole primary unlock that is made for long distance healing and is meant to lengthen the life of your sentry. Overall, the stock sentry isn't just a turret, it's a force multiplier, a psychological symbol of control on the battlefield. It shapes how teams play, and that's why, despite all of its counters and limitations, it remains at the core of every engineer's good gameplay. The engineer from Team Fortress 2 is genuinely my favorite class in the game. He's my biggest inspiration for YouTube. There's an insane amount of depth to his class, and I've only scratched the surface of what there is to learn. With that being said, I struggle to find original content for this class. I mean, hell, UNCLE DANE has been doing this thing for nearly a decade. There's only so much I can do without quote-unquote stealing content. back to my point. When I uploaded my video on Engineer Shotgun, someone left a comment on the video that asked something about the best moments for playing the Engineer. I think he also talked about being pushed back too much or spies harassing his buildings. So, in a way, this video is kind of a tribute to this guy. Okay, so why did I go on that strange and random rant? Because the Engineer has this special little robot hand that makes him pretty much a slightly stronger scout that can move around with his team, or even play for himself in the same way as the classes we discussed earlier. It's the Gunslinger.